Can't count them, except that I am counting them. Anyway, I am back, squeaky chair and all. I gave authors another shot. Yep. I counted them out and said, no, never, forever. And then decided that I would give them another chance. And here we are. And here's the results. Again, as always, if you want to know what these books are about, look them up yourself. Love. Okay. This is actually particularly squeaky today. Hang on. Just like shift this back a little bit more. If you hear a squeak, that's what that is. Okay. My hair is looking pretty all over the place today. Plus, I'm looking at myself backwards. Okay, let's actually get into this. So, who did I give a second chance? Jennifer Lynn Barnes. I gave her a second shot, okay? I read The Inheritance Games and then just decided that I would never read any of her other books ever again. I can't remember why. Because, well, but then I decided to give the Inheritance Games series another shot, so I read The Hawthorne Legacy, which is the second book, okay? So, here is the review for the first book, and then review for the second, and then a little bit of like a little summary situation happening after. Okay, so for the first book, Inheritance Games, 4 stars. I don't know why I decided not to read anymore. Interesting puzzles, fun characters, solid writing style. Characters certainly hit the buzzwords and characteristics: independent, don't need a man, woman, diversity, brooding and sensitive, and I'm amazing but don't realize they care for me. They hit all the buzzwords. A personal dislike was a few mentions every so often of New Age references. I don't like that in books. So maybe that's why I decided not to, but I can't actually remember because it was a 4-star book and I did enjoy all the puzzles. So I don't remember why exactly, but here we go. We read the second book, The Hawthorne Legacy. This is a fair way ago that I read The Inheritance Games. So here we go. 3.5 stars, intriguing puzzles and more complex personal dynamics than ever before. It's been a while since I read book 1, but picked it up where I left off pretty well. Short and sharp chapters, clever, and always keeps you guessing. And here's my summary. I know what you're thinking. Why did I give a second chance for a book I rated 4 stars? Well, it's because I completely wiped this author off my list after this book. Honestly, it was not a decision that I recall. Ultimately, I liked continuing the series, and I think I will indeed come back to this author again. In fact, I know that I will because I'm going to finish The Inheritance Game. Is it convoluted and complicated unnecessarily? Yes. But is it still fun? Also yes. Okay, next author, Matthew, I want to say Riley, and I'm pretty sure I'm correct, although I've spelled his name wrong on here. Hang on. Don't you love finding mistakes before a post is actually published? I do. Okay. His first book that I read was Cobalt Blue. It was a superhero book. Of course I read it. Never had read him before in my life. I gave that book 1 star. Okay, here we go. Potential but disappointing follow-through. This book was Power Rangers meets superhero bloodbath. It was violently unnecessary and way too quick. No development of characters or world. Instead, one of the most annoying parts. This book is almost entirely flashback driven. It's almost all info dump flashbacks instead of cleverly weaved world building and information provided as the story progresses. The author, okay, don't get offended because this is not, okay. The author couldn't have screamed gold is the gay character any louder so much that he became a caricature instead of a real person. That's why it was frustrating. You can actually write gay characters without screaming it from the rooftops every time you mention them. I thought that he just did that really, really poorly. A thoroughly disgusting portrayal of a Christian. Most of us are not, capital letters, like that, which was totally unnecessary. So he not only extremed the gay character, he also extremed the Christian character, and just in ways that felt so inauthentic and not real. This was short, but certainly not sweet. It was irritating at the lack of depth and development. It felt like someone edited over half the story and just left the action scenes and random exposition. It was not a book that I liked. However, I gave him a second chance because I found a book that actually sounded really interesting of his, and it was called Hover Car Racer. Now, before I do read my review for this, I will say, as far as I'm aware, there are 3 short stories that got put into one overall story. I read the one that had all of it combined, okay? 5 stars. From 1 star to 5. It's looking good. I loved the look, not just at racing, but racing hover cars at a pro level with an underdog team. The racing school and the other races were great. I loved the dynamics between the characters and the races. Special place in my heart for the Bug, who was a quirky addition to the team, and it was really fun time all around. I wasn't sure if the racing would lose my attention, but because of the hovercar element, it actually kept it quite well. The way races were set out and described was fascinating. Now, summary. I was not impressed with Matthew's book, Cobalt Blue, which was a superhero novella. It's very short. The second story I tried, however, Hovercar Racer, was my first 5-star read in quite a while. It was fast, fun, and full of action and adventure. I'm glad I said yes to this second chance. This probably was the biggest win of this entire experiment for me. Okay. Next author, Taylor Jenkins Reid. Okay, the first book that I read of hers was Daisy Jones and the Six. I gave it 2 stars. I'm going to try and condense my review to short and sharp with no spoilers, so here we go. Lots of drug abuse and intimate references, selfish characters who are horrible to each other, and I didn't feel sorry for any of them. The writing structure of Interview was fun, and it was an easy start to get through quickly, but that wasn't enough to save it for me. Some of the trigger warnings should be noted, and I will include them. Okay, so here are some of the content warnings. Drug abuse, intimate references, I'm going to say all the things that are abortion, domestic abuse, alcoholism, and cursing. Say it quick like a Band-Aid. The second book I read was Carrie Soto is Back. So 3.5 stars. I quite liked this one. I had tried other TJR books and not enjoyed, but this one was actually a good read for me. No objectionable content outside of the unlikable main character, purposely written that way, who was such a bad sport and a sore loser that it was pretty much insufferable. But outside of that, you root for an unlikable person. I suppose because she's the only one to root for, because she's the only tennis star we really know a lot about outside of her male counterpart. This tennis stuff was pretty uninteresting for me, not a sport girly, but not so bad that I couldn't continue on. Palpable, which was nice. Even though we had an unlikable character who was a shocking sport, self-destructive, and basically earned the name she was labelled, somehow it was still an enjoyable read. I can't quite put my finger on why. I think it's chalked up to being well written and not pushing the boundaries of unlikable too far. We did get somewhat redemptive information revealed, and maybe that's why I ended up finishing this book off with a "it's pretty good" opinion. Summary. I'm glad I gave another TJR book a go. While it wasn't a 5-star banger, Carrie Soto was still a better read than I enjoyed more and surprised me more than Daisy Jones. So I will also say this. Now, I did try and read another one of her books, Malibu Rising, gave up. So not all her books are going to be for me, but that particular one was pretty good. There were some low-level intimate references, just for content warnings. Okay, next author, Holly Jackson. The first book that I tried to read, A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. No rating because I DNF'd at 30%. I looked into the trigger warnings when I was partway through and decided not to keep going. It was fine, but Okay, second book of hers, The Reappearance of Rachel Price. 3.5 stars. Kept me pretty interested. I actually couldn't stand the suspense on who to trust and who not to, so I looked up the spoilers halfway through. You basically couldn't trust anyone in this story, capital letters, anyone, and if that drove me a little insane. It keeps you on edge, but it's also maddening to try and connect to anybody, any character at all. At one point or another, I basically hated everybody. It was twisty and maddening, and yet still had me. It was really well done. The mystery overall was unexpected and great. The documentary elements were fun. Characters were a disaster, but on purpose. Trigger warnings include cursing at a moderate level, domestic relationships, gaslighting, abuse, kidnapping, etc. So, my summary. I have attempted to DNF 2 books by Holly. Actually, that is true. 5 survive. I tried to. Oh, that's why I said 3. And thought maybe she wasn't for me. However, the third time one, I actually made it all the way through and enjoyed it. That was shocking. Okay, next person, because we have a couple left still to go, and this video is already too long. David Yoon. First book I tried to read was Super Fake Love Song. DNF at 30%, 2.5 stars. Skipped to the end at the third way mark. Funny writing, likable and interesting characters and story idea. What killed it for me were there were too many satanic demonic references. Bro. Okay, David Yoon is very clearly into the occult. The second book I tried, Frankly in Love, I gave 3 stars. Okay, so the satanic references were not specific to the other David Yoon book I read, but neither was the humor. It was funny. He's funny. Racism explored, immigrants explored, terminal illness and cancer, along with fake dating and high school shenanigans. It was pretty good overall. I am glad that I read another of David's books because they are hilarious. I will say, more surprising satanic references, but nowhere close to the previous book that I read. Let me just clarify this also. You cannot both think that things are satanic and demonic and also think that Satan doesn't exist. Just by the by. Those are contradictory statements. Okay? Next and last author, Catherine Center. My first book that I tried to read of hers was The Bodyguard. No rating, I DNF'd. Too slow to start, not a fan of grief as a big character focus, felt meh about it, so didn't continue. That's the first book that I read. The second book that I read was The Bodyguard. But I tried it again, and guess what? 4 stars. I'm so glad I gave this book another shot because I actually really enjoyed it. It was slow to start with a lot of grief hitting you in the face, but once we got past that and took off running, I really enjoyed it. I liked the dynamic between the main characters, the element of fake dating, and while serious drama or grief are not themes I normally gravitate towards, I think the author did a good job at representing them. I know it's the same book. By the way, this is the summary, but honestly, decided to give The Bodyguard another chance. I'm glad that I did. This was a win for sure, and I probably not what I needed to read the first time around when I gave it a go. Mood reading is definitely a thing, people. I will say, yes, it is. So those are the authors I gave another chance to. Maybe you have a suggestion of another author I should try again. I don't know. Maybe you don't. Maybe you should give another author a try. See you in the adventures.